and good evening, my little snickerdoodles. It is I, Shredlord, back again with my cohorts here at Thralls of Metal.
McCrog Nick.
Jammer John.
And we are here to bring you the brand new debut album on Prosthetic Records from Summoning the Lich, United in Chaos.
This also came out on the 26th of February. Again, debut album from these guys. They have one other demo that came out in 2017 when they formed. They are from St. Louis, Missouri. And the style I would call is death metal, but like sort of a hybrid of tech death, melodic death metal, a little bit of deathcore,
smidge of black metal,
a little bit of black metal,
smidge of slam.
Yeah, some brutal death. It's kind of a hodgepodge, but it's pretty well blended, and it kind of has its own sound a little bit. We'll get to that. Opens up with A Nightmare Begins with no pretense, no bullshit, just straight into riffs. Fiercely Black Dahlia Murder riffs. I gotta say it right away. I have jammed this band's two lead-off singles a while ago, and if I close my eyes, it could have been Black Dahlia Murder with occasional deathcore moments and kind of like pig growls. Pig growls? Pig squeal?
I mean, there are pig squeals. I didn't know pigs growl, though. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, they do. They make all sorts of horrible noises.
Yes, they do.
I mean, immediately, the comparisons can be drawn. And, I mean, it's still really good. It's, Riff City, lots of those, like, super fast, like, at the gates riffs. Except, like, pretty much like Black Dahlia Murder. You pretty much take that sort of American death metal ethic and kind of beef it up with a little bit of thrash and then play at the gates riffs, and voila, you have that style.
Now, the one thing I'll tell you about this album is it is produced very much. A lot of production went into this, a lot of compression. I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing at the end of the day, because I think when you produce an album or overproduce an album, I don't think it's overproduced, but it's right on the cusp, maybe?
It's
all comes down to like preference, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, this style generally warrants more polished
good production. Everything is compressed, though. Everything sounds
to the nines.
Yeah, to the nines, and it gives it a certain sound. And I almost wonder if the album would have benefited from maybe a couple things having a more raw or organic sound. Perhaps we'll find out on their next release. The other thing too is the guitar playing was once again Riff City. This guy's Riff City.
Yes,
but I guess I wanted to hear him dig in a little bit more. The leads were very quick, very sparse. They were very melodic and good, fusion-y type leads. I think of, the Faceless kind of type stuff,
Michael
or
Keane,
that kind of stuff, or Brandon Ellis of a band we haven't talked about in this review.
No, we haven't brought him up.
But they were really good and nice and melodic. But man, I wanted to hear him maybe dig in a little bit more, or add a little bit of fucking shred a little something, baby. Because
and never
was tasty.
did. Yeah.
There's just kind of like I think maybe out of necessity, like hey, we've been kind of humming on these riffs for a while. We kind of need to spice up a little bit. Let's just kind of pepper in a quick lead, and that's pretty much the feel of it. Honestly, the thing in terms of the showboating that really got me was the bass work.
Yeah,
the bass work is really cool. Actually, I think he actually has some longer lead moments than the actual guitarist, which is kind of strange. But he's really good. There's a really cool tapping spot on Cult of the Aphelion, which I think is just one of the big standout moments on that song. And that was kind of the point where I started hearing a little bit of more brutal death aspects. That was something that kind of set it outside of the Black Dahlia Murder sound. You get like almost slam riffs, very comparable to like Ingested, maybe like Dying Fetus.
Yep.
But I did like the bass work, especially the title track. The title track, he actually has a full-on lead on there that I thought was really melodic, and it really added a lot to the song.
They're actually all excellent musicians.
Yeah, I mean, that's clear.
Every single one of these guys is a top-notch musician, and they are all executing at a high level, so make no mistake about that. But yeah, it's kind of weird to see the bass player shine a little bit like that, but it's definitely welcomed.
I mean, if you got the talent there,
if you got it, flaunt it.
Yeah.
Back that ass up.
And the drum work is really solid, too. I mean, granted, I'm not the biggest fan of, like, super triggered drums, which these are really triggered.
Super triggered drums.
But I like how, he peppered in, like, a lot of cool breakdowns. There's some really cool, like, triplets. And I really like the fact that he just kind of threw in some gravity blast here and there, because that isn't generally like a mellow death or straight up death metal thing that's more like a brutal death, tech death sort of thing.
Which this is, though, too.
Yeah,
I would call it more tech death than brutal death. It seemed just kind of generic.
That was kind of the issue.
I hate to say that, especially with tech death, because, I mean, the shit's not easy.
No, it isn't.
But, like, I've heard all of it before.
That was definitely kind of an issue for me here. I mean, there were some songs that stood out more, but they really stuck to this very Black Dahlia Murder-ish sound. A lot of this kind of reminded me of like stuff I listened to like back in like the early to mid 2000s, mainly Black Dahlia Murder. I would say like Nocturnal, Job for a Cowboy's Sun Eater, and
Great fucking album.
Great album. Great album. That's
album.
a great album to emulate. And Through the Eyes of the Dead's Malice. They're all very similar to that, and I think the fact that they're so similar is kind of the issue here.
I don't know. I wouldn't call this so much Sun Eater as I would Genesis.
Yeah, I don't know. Genesis felt a little bit more stiff. I think there's enough like techie leanings on this one to kind of.
But Sun Eater had more of like that prog feel and was definitely all about the melody.
And definitely had some shred leads.
Oh, yeah.
This does kind of step outside of that a little bit. I mean, you occasionally get like some really cool black metal moments, again, the title track.
Yeah. Predatory Reflections had a really cool black metal riff intro that I dug.
Acid Rain, too, had that kind of like Cannibal Corpse crawling riff in the beginning.
Yeah.
That one was a really good kind of break from the melodeath. That one kind of stripped away the melodeath a little bit and actually kind of reminded me more of bands like Hour of Penance and Hideous Divinity, that kind of straightforward modern death metal, almost kind of brutal death metal sound. I kind of like that because it was a break from, again, those very similar kind of Black Dahlia Murder at the Gatesy riffs. It kind of got a little repetitious there. There are lots of cool breakdowns in here. If you love breakdowns, there are peppered all over the place. Demon in the Snow, which I'm reasonably sure we just had to fight that thing not too long ago, has some really cool syncopated breakdowns, like kind of maybe like decapitated-ish. I mean, if you like that sort of like syncopated breakdown thing, they're all over here. The main issue, again, though, is you kind of heard them before. And, this is a band's debut album. Like, they're just starting off, and, I mean, that's kind of a thing with, young bands. They kind of wear their influences really, really, like, on their sleeve, big time. And, yeah, this one is very much on the sleeve. Like, you notice it immediately.
Inconsistently.
Would I say Job for a Dahlia Murderer?
I actually wrote down Black Dahlia Cowboy. I mean,
both are acceptable.
Both are acceptable. And again, I mean, you're emulating really good bands, which, I mean, if you were emulating, like, I don't know, 6 Feet Under's last album, we need to have a talk.
I mean, I farted earlier at work today, and that kind of sounded like the new.
Like, Chris, is that
Did you squeeze your ass cheeks together so it sounded like
I did, so it sounded like a balloon.
No, it's the squeal and the rotting. When you when you compress your ass cheeks so tight that it's
It really kind of became an issue later on this album, though, because I was running out of things to actually write about these tracks that really stood out. Like, it kind of became a chore to find moments that really stood out, like keys popping up. That was kind of cool, but at the same time, it just kind of added to the overproduced feel of it. And, this is, one guitarist, bassist, drummer, and a singer, so that's just another layer there that they'd have to replicate live.
This kind of sounds like, remember when the Faceless toured with no bassist?
Yeah.
Yes.
So this kind of sounds like they could do the same thing. They could tour without
with a laptop.
Player. Yeah, with a laptop.
Play a laptop through a PA system.
Yeah.
Play along to the track.
Their bassist is too good. Bring him along. Come on. He's
definitely
really
bring
good.
the bassist. Just kind of seemed lackluster.
Sterile.
Even though, sterile.
That's kind of the feel of this. Like, I mean, again, these guys have the talent. It is absolutely clear as
There's
day.
A boatload of potential here.
It's just sort of the songwriting and maybe getting outside of the box a little bit more.
Like the formula could be easily replicated. The music would be difficult to play without without being good at your instrument. But with a little practice, you could easily replicate the formula of this.
And I mean, they had some fun with some of the song titles. I mean, the last two, Temple of the Bone. It's a sexy temple.
First of all, what a fucking song title. Temple of the Bone. I mean, that's right up my alley, man. Literally. I loved it. Just saying.
And then Lore of the Necromancer, which has a very, very familiar start to it, which I wrote, what a horrible night to be lured by a necromancer. Ooh. It has that fade-in triplet chug, and I was like, that sounds, again, very Black Dahlia Murder. Again, you're emulating a really cool band, but sometimes just a little too close to home. But that song, it kind of just sounded like another one that, like, a lot of these songs could be rearranged and it really wouldn't change the flow of the album. And that's something I kind of look for in terms of how an album flows. Like, is there like some sort of story? Like, okay, we're going to have like a nice drop off in a more mid-tempo territory here, you know, maybe something more aggressive here. A lot of this is interchangeable, and that's kind of an issue. I want something that kind of flows naturally versus just a collection of songs.
So let's get down to the rankings. I think for myself, this is a good band with a lot of potential. And if on their follow-up album, they get a little more creative with the songwriting and play a little bit more to the outside elements that were present in the first album, but just not long enough, I think that they have a killer career ahead of them. So for this one, all things considered, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. For a debut album, it definitely wasn't bad. It was well produced. They are great musicians. And even though this hit way too close to all of their heroes' homes, I think this is an excellent place to start. And like I said, there is definitely a boatload of potential here, and we'll see if they take it in a more unique direction next time.
I'm going to give it a 3 as well. I pretty much agree with everything you just said.
I am smart.
Yep. SMRT. There's definitely a lot that could be done with this in the future. There are great parts in all of these songs. There are moments peppered within each song that make them jammable. I never really stopped moving my head, but it played way too close to the influences. Like, it didn't sound like there was much originality going on. And for people that are this talented at playing their instruments, you'd think you'd want to pepper in more of yourself versus more of your idols, so to speak. Not that it's a bad thing, because like we've all been saying, you know, you picked a good batch of bands to emulate, but there's so much more that you could touch upon. Like I know when songs got into like, say, like black metal territory, like there's a lot that you could do with this sound that I would like to see in the future. But overall, 3 out of 5.
3's all around. I like this album, but at the same time, I feel like I've heard it before, and that was a while ago. Change around the production. The production was kind of a thing with me. The huge compressed sound, very polished. Death metal should be gritty. It's death metal. That's where grit belongs. That's where it lives. And I mean, yeah, you did play kind of close to your sources, but you know, they're good sources. Songwriting is kind of the thing here, and it certainly isn't talent. Once again, like, we're pretty much all in agreement here that these guys are immensely talented. It's just they kind of labor the same sound from track to track. There isn't much variance outside of like maybe a couple of tracks on here that kind of break outside the mold. And then outside of that, you get like, you know, moments in songs. But I kind of need entire songs to stand out. And again, like the flow of the album thing, songs shouldn't be so interchangeable. It should have like a natural, cool flow. But overall, you guys are off to a promising start. And, you know, again, you have the talent. You just kind of got to break outside of the box just a little bit. That's at least what I think. I mean, if you guys are comfortable doing this, by all means do it, because you're, again, emulating really, really solid bands.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, 3 out of 5. I think it's decent. I don't know if I'm going to be returning to it much, but I probably will jam it a couple more times just to get a better feel for it. But yeah, not bad.
Well, that brings us to the end of the review, my little succubus and succubi. So, thank you for tuning in once again to another excellent album review from Thralls of Metal. Also, if you like this video, please hit the like button, the subscribe button if you are not already subscribed, and make sure that the bell is clicked on because it notifies you of all of our daily content releases.
Ding.
Ding dong. One last thing before I let you go, do not forget that we are so effing close to our 4,500 subscriber giveaway, and we cannot wait to give the lucky person the hand-picked by Necrotic Nick
Ooh, that rhymes.
gift package that he has selected with his own 2 hands. And thank you so much for even allowing us to do a 4,500 subscriber giveaway, because it all just feels like a dream as the numbers keep growing and we keep growing as a community. So
I can't wait to give you my package.
I told you. Hand selected. Anyway, we'll get out of here so he can go select with his hands. We'll catch you later.